Hello everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Friday before a long weekend for those in the United States. I hope that everyone is doing well and staying safe. Hey Sarah. I have a 5th grader and an 8th grader. And so we are still navigating the start of school. My kids are doing virtual. So we've been it's been learning curve. We actually have not had any technology issues, but it's just issues of just figuring out how to learn online, how to stay focused, staring at a screen. And so, yes, hey Sarah. So just thank you for joining me. If you're joining the live, hello. If you're watching this later, hey. I will be checking comments throughout this broadcast and then afterwards. So if you have any questions, you feel free to leave them in the comments and I will try to answer them throughout the day. For those who are new, who haven't seen me before, my name is Cheryl Brickey. I am the face behind Meadow Designs. I've been quilting for about 10 years now. And this is my 5th mystery quilt, 5th annual mystery quilt, the Morewood Mystery. So this is the 3rd month. Can you believe it? It's already the 3rd month. Like, I don't know, time is just flying by. So in July, we got the fabric requirements and we had a month to get our fabrics. And in August, we had cutting. And this month is September, we're starting to piece. And this month is half square triangles, which I must say are my favorite block. I mean, I have no problem making like 300 of them. It's maybe not healthy, but I do love them. They're my favorite block. And I'm going to show you today how I do half square triangles, giving you a few little tips and hints along the way to make sure that your half square triangles turn out really the way you want them to, nice and perfect, nice and straight with the seams meeting in the corners. So unless anyone else has any questions, I figure I'll just get started and I'm gonna switch the camera around. Let's see, making sure that, okay, so I will be bopping back and forth because just to make sure that I am catching comments. And we do have, my tiniest cat is now joining us because, we're live. This is what they do. Every time I try to take a quilt picture, I put a quilt on the ground. It just attracts the cats. So if she comes in and out, you can just say hi to her. So that's Piper. Okay, so to do half square triangles, how often do you do them that they wind up, and I tried to even exaggerate it so you could see it better, with the ends kind of curved up. And it's hard to see, but you can see with a ruler here. Let me make sure you can actually see it. Yes. You can see that this is not actually straight and it's kind of poofing up here. It's because as things were going and as you were pressing them, as I was pressing it, it kind of stretched the fabric. So you can see that this is not going to be, no matter how you cut it, it's not going to be the greatest once you get it in the quilt because things are always going to kind of start moving. So the technique I use today goes and fixes that. And you can always wind up getting great, beautiful half square triangles. So I start by taking my backing, the lighter fabric. So if I'm going to use, this would be like my background. On the back of your lighter fabric, I take and I just draw a line. I usually just use pencil. Just a thin line, just so your eye can see it. Let me just make sure it's hard to, actually laying it down, you can probably see it a little bit better than me holding it up. You can also use any of your favorite marking things. You can use a blue line, a blue marker, the green, or not the green, the purple. You can use any of those. There are other ones you can, if you have another way of doing it where you don't mark the actual block and you have something on your machine, that works too. So after I layer this, and then I sew a scant 1/4 of an inch on either side, I wind up with this. So let me just make sure you can see it well. Okay, so there's my line and there are my 2 things of stitching. And I do use a scant quarter just to make sure that I leave enough room to trim. If you wanted to do a half square triangle exactly, it winds up that like 3 7/8 plus 3 7/8 squares will give you a 3.5 inch. I always round up and I would just use a 4 inch. That way I just have a little bit of wiggle room and a little room to trim, because I think that oversizing and trimming is one of the key things. Now normally what you would do is you would take your ruler, you'd slice right on that line, and then you'd wind up with 2 that you would then go and press. Because this area, and I will demo this with my iron, but you can see my iron is not on, it's not plugged in. Obviously, it goes without saying, never ever use an iron on your beautiful cutting mat, but this is just off. So if I was to just kind of go and press without, this is the old way, because this area right here is so skinny and so flimsy, it has a tendency of just moving and stretching. So instead of trimming, what I would like you to do, just try it maybe once. After you have this, make sure no other comments, okay? The first thing I do is press, just to make it nice and flat. Because, you know, after you sew in 2 directions, it could be a little different. The next thing, I flip this over. So on the darker fabric, while this is attached, and I must preface this by saying I did not come up with this. This is from Paige Alexander. She taught me this. She blogs at quiltedblooms.com, and she's my co-author for Modern Plus Sign Quilts and a good quilt friend, and she is the one that got onto this method, and this is what I do all the time. It just takes one extra step. So while these are still attached, you fold this back and you iron right here, and then you go around over here and you iron right here. Because when I'm ironing, this is all attached, this has much less chance of starting to move around. It's more anchored. So when you're done ironing, and this was pre-ironed, the shadows, you can see that there's little bumps right there. You've almost like pre-set it. Everyone got that? So then you go and you cut it in half, just like you normally would. You'd have the 2. And because this already is pre-ironed, when you open it up and then you iron it, it's basically already set. You can see I'm just using a non-iron iron, and it just winds up, and where is my, here we are. No, this is my gross one. Where's my good one? Oh, the cat's laying on it. Sorry about that. My cat was laying on it. I couldn't find it. So once you iron it, you're going to wind up, you're going to see how nice and straight that is? You see how that just tugs the ruler right there? That line is super straight. And that is going to be key to getting a great half square triangle. So now how I go about trimming these, this is my favorite way of trimming. I have my trusty Alpha spinning cutting mat, and then also under my cat is my block lock ruler. So this is my favorite specialty ruler. This is the 6.5 inch half square triangle block lock ruler, and it can cut any half square triangle up to 6.5 inches. So I will show you how to, but it can cut little ones, it can cut all the way up to the size of this. And what it is, the difference is, and it's hard to see in this, but there's actually a groove cut into the ruler. And so the seam is going to ride right along that, and it's going to make sure that our cuts are perfect. Now you can get these in really most quilt shops hopefully have that. If your local quilt shop doesn't have it, you can ask them, maybe they can order it. It is also available on Amazon, and I'll put in the show notes. I do have a Amazon list of things I use, and I will put it on there so that way you can, if you need to, if you don't have a local quilt shop or your shop is not open at this point, during Coronaville time, you can go and get it on Amazon. So the way you do this, and unfortunately my block, it was nicely pressed, but then my cat pressed it for me again. You put the block lock ruler down, and you can see that on the screen. And you can see by going like this, you see how it's just riding. It's riding right along that seam. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and these fabrics that I started with were 6 inches, so I'm going to trim this to 5.5. So the first thing I'm going to do is just cut on 2 sides, and so you can just see just that little bit just kind of goes away. I spin this 180 degrees, and so now my cut edge is here. And then I just slide my ruler down. If I wanted a 4.5 inch, I line up the 4.5 inch, and there it is. And then 5 and this. So this is how you can trim any size to it. So I was going to trim the 5.5. So I go up like that. I trim. I brush those to the side. Unfortunately, I usually brush them on the floor, especially when I'm trimming like 100 of them, and they wind up all over my feet, and I clean them up when I'm done. And now you can see my block, which used to be pressed. But so once again, my seam is super straight, and if you look in the corners, it goes perfectly right to the corner. And so when you have this, if all of your blocks have your seam right in the corner, and you sew with a consistent seam, then you should really get good results when you sew your quilts together. So that is, in a nutshell, how I do my half square triangles. And I will do these whether I have 2 of them to do or 300. So really the trick being ironing and pre-pressing this open while it's still connected. And pressing that seam, and then once it's cut, press it again, but then you really just have to press it, don't iron it. And then trim them down with your favorite trimming tool. And I know other people have other trimming tools. The block lock ruler for me is just so quick, you know, because if I, you know, very quickly I can just go and be like, oh, instead I want 5, bam, bam, or this, you know, and it rides right along that seam. And that's about everything. So, does anyone have any other questions? So hi Dina and Nancy and Kim and Terry and everyone. Does anyone have any other questions about half square triangles or anything about the mystery quilt in general? I will just give you a few seconds to type if you do. What do you think of the technique? Has anyone ever tried this? Do you find that it works? Are you willing to give it a try? It is one extra step. So, you know, especially, I'm sorry, there's a lot of half square triangles to do this month. You do have an entire month. So it does take a little bit longer, but, you know, just the fact that it just makes it so much, I don't know, everything comes out really well. And when you start with blocks that have nice straight seams, that have the seams that are perfect in the corners, it just makes it that much easier to wind up with accurate piecing in your quilt top. So that is all I had. So I hope you guys have good cutting. I will post a link to the Amazon list in case you guys want to see what I use, in case you're, you know, that way you didn't have to write down. This will be available to watch. I will be saving it, and I'll even save it as an announcement. So yes, you can go back and watch it at any time. And the name of the ruler again was the Block Lock. I'll go get it. Here we are. It's probably going to be, oh, it's backwards. So here you go. How about I flip it backwards? Now it's forwards. There you go. It's the Block Lock ruler. And they make a whole bunch. They make half square triangles. They make half square rectangles. I love their flying geese ones. The flying geese ones are set. So you have to buy a 3.5 by 6 or a 2 by 4. The nice thing about the half square triangles is that they do everything up to that size. And they sell smaller ones. They sell bigger ones. I've seen they have a 9.5 inch now, and that is on my Christmas list. So I am excited about that, because especially the whole smiley or frowny face, it becomes more and more of an issue the larger your half square triangles are, just because it's just so much bigger and so much more room to be kind of stretched. So that is it, and the next set of instructions will be posted the first Thursday of October, and I looked, and that is actually October 1st. So until then, if you have any questions, you leave them in the comments, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.